Hello Internet, today we're going to talk about the Behringer Neutron. I'm going to make a quick overview, so I'm not going to do what others have made lots and lots and lots of times. And then I'm going to talk about why it's or it's not a synth that you should get and add to your arsenal, and why did I get it as a Psytrance producer. So let's start with it. We have two 3340 oscillators. They're the same oscillators you find in the Roland SH101. They're clones. And as far as I know, these oscillators are only made by Behringer now. So like getting any of these chips is most likely made by Behringer. We have 5 shapes for each oscillators. They're morphable or they can be fixed. There's sine, triangle, saw, square, square, and the tone mode. The tone mode is, I don't know how to explain it, as far as I got it, it's basically two square waves together with pulse modulation. So for instance, if you take the pulse modulation part in here, put it to the extreme left, it's a square wave. And now, when I'll turn it to the right, we'll get this sort of the second square wave and the pulse width modulation, which is going on. It's not like modulating the automatically the pulse width. It's just, you'll hear it and I hope you'll get it. So that's for the oscillators. I'm going to keep it on so. We have a 12 decibel per octave filter with three variable shapes, low pass, high pass, and band pass. I don't know if I've mentioned that, it's self-resonating, so... And I think it's really creamy. I really love this filter. The only digital part of the synth is the LFO, which can go up to 100 kilohertz, which is audible, which is like, it can really come in handy. I'm going to talk about that later on. Same as the oscillators, the shapes, we have 5 shapes, morphable, or they can be fixed. As I said, I prefer morphable. The only difference is that we don't have the tone mode. We have a ramp up and ramp down. Ramp down, ramp up, sorry. We have an overdrive circuit, a bucket brigade delay, 2 envelope generators, noise generator, sample and hold, slew or glide, 2 attenuators, and a really huge 56-point patch bay, which is the key features for me. We have 32 ins, 24 out, and that's pretty much it for me as a quick overview. And now I'm going to dive deeper for why I bought it and why you should or you shouldn't get it. And I'm just going to go over what it interests me the most of it. I'm going to talk about some cons and, So with that said, let's start. As you already know, it's an analog synth. And I think that analog synth as important as digital synth. I'm not a hardcore digital or analog fan. I love both. I think both are extremely unique in their own way, and I love to have both of them in my arsenal. This synth has really this analog mojo in it, and I really love that. You can get this analog mojo for 300 euros. Well, I guess it's something similar in dollars, but you get the idea. It's extremely cheap, and yet it's extremely powerful. For instance, as the oscillators are the same found in the Roland SH101, you can get that Roland SH101 mojo in your track for 300 euros. I don't know, the SH101 is I think 2,000 euros, and it's extremely old and it might break down, and this costs nothing. I really love that. And the synth is paraphonic. I didn't mention that earlier, but I think if you've watched some reviews about it, you already know that. It's paraphonic, so basically you can play 2 notes at the same time, but these 2 notes shares the same filter, the same VCA, so paraphonic. You can sync both oscillators. It's a soft sync. It's not gonna align them in phase. It's just gonna align the pitch, and this can come really handy when you're trying to do FM. And yes, this synth can do FM. Well, thanks to the patch bay, you can make FM. FM, it's the most important type of synthesis in Psytrance. That's a joke, but like it's heavily used, so it can do it. There's the filter, which is extremely creamy for me, and it's self-resonant, and with it you can make any type of sound, even acid. And I think it's really good for acid because you don't lose a lot of low end in it. So for instance, let's try this. If you send this signal, let me go an octave lower. You get the idea. You can make acid with it. There's actually a hidden feature which I really like. It's the second filter. And the second filter is basically doing the opposite of what the first filter is doing. So for instance, if the first filter is on low pass, the second is on high pass. And if the first on high pass, the second is on band pass, etc. And this can really come in handy because you can create basically different shapes for the filter that doesn't exist in the mod selection. So for instance, if you take the first VCF, sum it with the second one, and then send everything to the VCA. Oh, and by the way, I'm gonna tell you why the VCF is routed to the VCA directly and just in a second. And now, listen what we have. It's a notch filter. Oh, sorry. If you modulate that with the LFO, we can get these water kind of sounds, watery kind of sounds. Or maybe we can do this. We can get all type of interesting sounds just by, summing the two filters together. And like, it's just a, I don't know, 1 minute patch. It's like really simple, really straightforward. The second thing I want to talk about is the LFO, which can go up to 100 kilohertz. And as I said, it can come in handy because as it can go up to the audible range, we can use it as a third oscillator. And actually, we can even get a fourth oscillator out of the resonant filter, which can produce a sine wave, and it can key track. So we have basically a 4 oscillator analog paraphonic synth, which is, I don't know, I've never tried it, but it can come in handy. And like, I think this is an amazing feature in this synth that you don't get elsewhere, especially for this price. The envelope are extremely snappy, so when you're trying to make percussions or bass lines, especially psi bass lines, that can really come in handy. The sample and hold generator, well, Psytrance is kind of based on randomness, and all of these interesting leads that you hear in the big tracks has lots and lots of sample and hold and randomness in it. It's just Psytrance is a controlled chaos. And what basically is true, because you're controlling randomness, which will make chaos. And like with this synth, you have a lot of opportunities to add randomness to your tracks. Now I'm going to talk about a feature that I really love, which is the assign output. Well, as the name suggests, you can assign it to predefined sources. For instance, the aftertouch, the mod wheel, and the velocity. And I think this adds lots of movement to the track. Like, for example, if we're modulating the filter cutoff with the velocity, or the pitch with the velocity, we can get all sort of interesting sounds just by, like defining the velocity of the notes we're sending to the synth. And I think this is really great. And lots of synth lacks the ability of modulating stuff with the velocity. And, for me, it's really important. Now I'm going to talk about the signal flow of this synth, which I think is really important to understand, because you can get a lot of stuff, like you can understand a lot of stuff by just understanding how the signal flows in the synth. So the signal goes from the oscillators to the filter. From the filter, it'll go to the overdrive. From the overdrive to the VCA. From the VCA to the delay, and then to the output. And that's why I'm routing the VCF to the VCA, because I want to bypass the overdrive, because I think that having the overdrive or always on, first of all, doesn't sound that good. That's just my own opinion. It can come really in handy in some sort of leads, or some sort of sounds, but for me, it's not the best sounding thing in the synth. Plus, for an overview, I think the overdrive altered too much the sound, that it's not that interesting. Now I'm going to talk about the delay. The delay is a bucket brigade delay. The delay is really special. You can't use it like a normal delay. I think it can be used more of a creative tool than actually a real delay, because, well, just listen to this. It'll alter the sound just too much. Oh, sorry. See, it'll come really in handy if you like pass by the VCA. So it'll go into drone mode. Now I think it's extremely interesting. It can be used more as a creative tool than actually a delay, or maybe just a little bit of delay. Like it has its, like, I don't know, as I said, I think it's a creative tool more than a real delay. Another interesting feature about the synth, and it's thanks to the patch bay and the random generator, well, the sample and hold, and all of the modulation possibilities, is that it can make some really interesting blips and blops. For instance, this is really a simple patch, but I think it'll demonstrate it really well. If I'll take the MIDI gate to control the sample and hold clock, I'll get the noise to the sample and hold. I'll take the sample and hold, to modulate the filter frequency, and I'm going to send an ARP. And I'm going to use one oscillator. Well, you know, just a really fast blip and blop thing, and it can make some really interesting FM sounds. So if I'll take the second oscillator and I'll put it in the first attenuator, take the first attenuator, put it in the I'm sorry, I'm going to take the first oscillator and I'm going to make it modulate the second one. I'm going to put both of them on sine wave, 2 octaves of difference, and I'm going to sing them. I think when you sing them, the FM gets like its mojo out of the synth. So I'm going to put it on high pass, no modulation. Sorry, take out the R, take out the noise. Now let's modulate. When I'll take the sing, listen to this. But with the sing, we can do this. And we can put whatever shape, you know, to modulate, or we can even morph them, you know, as I've already said. As you can see, the synth is really versatile. From like, you can make lead sounds, pads, blips and blops, FM, percussions, literally like everything you need. And by the way, I really love making bass sounds with it. I think it's really good. Like, here's just a small test. Well, I went to the asset territory again, but you know, you got it. And to end this video, I'm going to talk about the cons of the synth. Well, the cons for me. First of all, I think the synth is extremely unstable pitch-wise, which is, you know, the analog mojo, but sometimes it's really a pain in the beep, you know, because like, you're doing this lead, then you went to, I don't know, let's say you want to smoke a cigarette, you'll get back to your synth and it's out of tune. It's always like that. And like, it takes around 10 minutes to warm it up. It's something I really like about analog synth, but I think it's extremely unstable. I have other analog gear, you leave it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then it's kind of stable. This one, absolutely not. And the tune parts are like extremely sensitive, like, so like you're modulating something and then you touched it and like you're out of tune. Like, even if you touch it just a little bit, you're like, you're out of tune. it lacks more attenuators, more multipliers, and more sum. A lot of time I'm just out of attenuators. I think it would have been better adding more attenuators, more multipliers in it. But you know, we're not going to ask for much because I think Behringer were extremely generous with this synth. Having all of these features in like one little box, which is, by the way, Eurorack compatible, I think that's really generous, and we're not going to ask for a lot. Third thing, there's a lot and a lot and a lot of hidden features that you need, like some sort of a combination of buttons to get them. Like, for example, choosing what the assign button will do. There's a software that comes with it, but it's I don't know. It's really weird. It doesn't work for me. I know I've read on the internet a lot of people really happy with it. I'm having problems with it and it doesn't work. So like every time I need to change, for example, the assign button, I have to go and with a combination of buttons and to get to it, which is really annoying. It would have been better, like, I don't know, to have jumpers or something to do it, just like the ones for the MIDI, the ones in here. I think it would have been a better idea, but anyways, we're not going to ask for much because, as I said, this synth is already extremely powerful and they're extremely generous, like, for this price. So with that said, this is the end of the video. I'm going to post lots of sound designs, tips and tricks after in the weeks to come. And if you want me to dive, like, to go really in depth in the hidden features and like everything that synth can do, please leave me a comment and I'll do that. But for now, this is the end of the video. Have a great day. Ciao.